All right. I'll call the order of the March 13, 2004 Park and Recreation Board. Do roll call. Vice President Ryan Cambridge.
Here.
Secretary Michael Kaufman is not here. Chris Barksdale.
Here.
Kimberly Lane.
Here.
Chad Dilley.
Here.
Matt Milburn is not here. We have a quorum. Next up is the minutes. Anyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any questions or concerns with the minutes as presented? Do we have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carries unanimously. Next up, public presentation and comments. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to any public comments, online or here? No? All right. We will move forward then. Park Foundation update.
That's me. Okay, so I met with the Park Foundation, was that January? In January. And at that time, they have added 6 members to their board, so they're up to 16 members on their board. And they're in the midst of setting up their charters for committees, and both the marketing and developments charters are completed and they've met, so we can expect them to be getting some more things going in the near future. And then also, I know Jared's really good about thinking about and working with the foundation about what ways that they can help and things they can do for us. But they asked that we also keep in mind ways that we think that they could help us to either maximize the quality of projects that are being done from our master plan, or things that might be able to speed up or add to that, so that we keep that in mind as well.
Excellent. Do you want to have any questions? Very good. Appreciate the update. All right. Next is staff reports. Superintendent.
Thank you, John. Good evening, Park Board. Just a couple of updates from my report. I wanted to provide a general update of Carpenter Nature Preserve and where we're at with that. We are heavy into design and are finalizing kind of the conceptual layout of the pavilion where the restroom will be held, kind of the vertical build of our phase 1 out there at the site. So working with Delve with that, and we've also been visiting the site with REA as we finalize design and necessary surveys. And you'll see on tonight's agenda there is an amendment to the existing contract for some additional topographic surveys and work out there. But everything's moving along great. We should have be going into construction design here in the next month, and that'll really expedite things as we prepare for a potential summertime bid. So a lot more to come with phase 1 of Carpenter Nature Preserve. Also wanted to provide a update for the community and park board on the Elm Street connector. We have met with Lions Park members and finalized the boundaries of that easement that'll go across Lions' 2 parcels of land to connect to Elm Street Green. So those exhibits are finalized as of today. I've sent them around the Lions board just for their final input, and we should be able to have that prepared for next month's agenda for consideration of accepting that easement. Also want to highlight that we were able to hold our first volunteer breakfast appreciation. This is something we've been wanting to do for a couple of years to honor all the volunteers that assist with our park system throughout the years. Every year in our annual report, we identify all the volunteer hours, and as you know, they make up more than a staff person throughout the year. So we definitely rely on our community to help us do all the things we do. And I'm just proud of the team to be able to finally host that celebratory breakfast for all those volunteers. The maintenance department finalized and installed the pad for the train depot historic marker that'll be on the rail trail. If you'll recall, last year, we worked with the Historical Society and members of the Cultural District to develop a plaque that would be placed on the rail trail to memorialize the train depot that used to be on the tracks that now make up our favorite recreational trail. So the pad is poured, the post is installed, and once we receive some benches, we will have that dedication ceremony in the very near future. I am happy to say also that we have officially closed out the Next Level Trails Grant Round 2 program. So a 3-year grant that helped us complete our Big Four rail trail, and there's quite a bit of work that goes into that free money. So I'm happy that we're finally able to close the book on that one. Wanted to also highlight a accomplishment of our Nature Center staff, and that is that our Indiana Master Naturalist class has once again sold out for the year. So a opportunity for expanding naturalist and nature education in our community to all ages, both adults, and there is a youth program as well. So it's nice to see the appetite for that program returning, and we will continue to provide that just as long as we have the capabilities. And we also met the Zionsville staff, myself, our recreation coordinator and director of recreation services, met with Whitestown staff to discuss a civic race against each other. So we have formed the Town Showdown, which will be a part of our Trail Fest celebration. So I'm going to really need Zionsville's help to make sure that we have more people there than Whitestown, because I think the stakes are flying the other municipalities' flag at Town Hall, as well as putting your name on the coveted golden bike wheel. So more to come on that in the future. And that is all from the superintendent report.
Very good. And next, Director of Maintenance Services.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All righty, so on top of normal duties and rounds, for February, we had 2 instances of graffiti that consumed approximately 2.5 hours for the staff. And an otherwise temperate and warm February, we had 1 snow and ice event over the weekend. Team came out to do salt and clear snow ordinances for level 1s. We seeded the Willow Road Pollinator Project area with prairie grass and wildflower mix that we obtained from Spence Nursery, as well as the golf course hillside in that area, again with prairie grass and wildflower from Spence. Our Natural Resources Tech SAM has begun cold stratifying various species of native wildflower seeds and germinating some coneflower for spring planting. Our Maintenance Tech Gordon has began cemetery surveys as we plan to increase our working knowledge on historical marker restoration and general cemetery maintenance. Along the Big Four rail trail, we seeded the north end with native sedge and wildflower mix, that connector point with Whitestown. We felled some dead trees in anticipation of the train depot memorial, and as mentioned previously, the team excavated, framed, poured, and graded concrete pad there for that memorial. I would like to send out a special thanks to Brad and Jeff with the Zionsville Streets Department for once again lending their expertise to the team on that project. At Heritage Trail, we seeded the circle there in the roundabout with blue stem and Virginia wild rye to complement the native plugs that were planted last season. Those were donated by a resident. At Creekside, we installed some grip tape on the bridges at Creekside Corporate, as well as cleared fallen trees from the hardscape paths. At Elm Street Green, that forest area that had been cleared, we seeded that with 2.5 acres worth of wetland forest seed mix from Spence Nursery, as well as clearing debris from those hardscape paths from that clearing and some additional trees that had fallen from weather event. Mulberry Fields, we added additional topsoil and grass to the ruts that had sunk over the wintertime. At Starkey Park, we shored up and reinforced the bridge located at Lower Trail 1. We're just getting that nice and safe. We are going to be having a Gold Scout replacing that sometime this fall or next spring. Additionally, cleared fallen trees from natural surface trails there. Turkey Foot, we did install some additional grip tape on the small walking bridge. We plan on installing some grip tape on the larger walking bridge as well. At Overly Warman Park, we did some additional seeding on the artificial hillsides, natural trails, and mountain bike course to help combat that poison hemlock that's out there, as well as clearing fallen trees from the hardscape paths and the disc golf course natural surface trails. And at these new Zionsville Road trailhead, the team installed some downspouts on the west side of that restroom shelter. That's all I have for now.
Very good. Very busy as usual. Appreciate it. Any questions?
No, great work.
Great work.
Thank you very much.
Director of Recreation Services, Mindy.
All right, good evening, everyone. All right, so February we had 1,193 walk-ins to the Zionsville Nature Center. Throughout the month, we had over 30 programs, both public and private. A couple highlighted ones for our private programs. We did our second round of Nature Connections with Eagle Elementary and Trailside, so that's that 3rd grade program. So we still have one more program, which will be in May, and then their service project, which will take place at Zion Nature Sanctuary and Overly Warman Park. So those will be the first couple weeks of May. And then that program will wrap up for this school season. A few other things, as Jared had mentioned, we had our Indiana Master Naturalist class, which is going very well. And then two of our naturalists, Molly Schrock and Sierra Stewart, headed down to Hendricks County for the annual Camp Summit, which was held on February 7th. And Molly actually did also present at that conference. And her presentation was very well received. She had almost 40 in attendance, which is majority of the people that were at that conference. So in addition to that, we ended our series of luminary walks with our Valentine Luminary, which 139 people attended at Elm Street Green. We had the perfect sunset because it was hot pink, so it was just great. So we will kick off luminaries again in December as a part of Winterfest. So. And then just a few other ones. We did receive another donation from the Optimist Club for our junior IMN class. And so they will be helping with the cost of that one so we can keep it very affordable for all of the kids. So that it's kind of a camp week-long series that is open for registration if anyone knows any 9 to 12-year-olds that would want to become, junior naturalists. And then the last thing is on Monday, our camp registration opened. We have 17 camps this year for ages 2 all the way to 12, as well as a CIT, so a counselor and training program. And out of those 17 camps, 9 of them are full. Majority of them were full by the end of Monday, and 6 of them have 5 or less spots available for those. And then the final one is, since, I will see you guys after the eclipse, is we do have total eclipse of the park on April 8th from 1 to 5 at Mulberry Field. So hope to see some of you there. And of course, watch our social media because we've got some fun posts scheduled to be coming up here in the next few weeks. So.
Excellent. The Indiana Master Naturalist class is great. I did it last year, and I'm teaching that tomorrow, and then I was and I taught with the kids. So it's a great program. You guys do a great job, and I'm glad we're able to keep it going and still got turning people away, right?
We still are, so we haven't hit that capacity yet that people want more.
Excellent. Anyone have any questions? Great work as always. Thank you. All right, golf course manager. How's the golf course doing for us?
Golf course doing all right. So we opened on Monday. In February, we sold 79 season passes, 8 more cart passes. And to date, we're at 126 total season passes and 14 cart passes. And to kind of put that in perspective, what we were at in 2023, at this point, we were at 62 golf passes and 2 cart passes sold. So 600% more cart passes and 101% more golf passes. So to date, we're just shy of $50,000 in revenue. And at this point last year, we were at $23,000 in revenue. So we did some work, some tree work with Trees R Us around the clubhouse along hole 3, the first hole in February. The pumps that you guys approved in February, I've contacted B&H, and they're going to come in the spring and install those. Yeah, that's about it. So today we were pretty much packed from about 10 o'clock on.
Wow.
Next week, maybe not so much.
A little downturn in the temps there.
Yeah. So.
They're loving the new golf carts, aren't they?
Excuse me?
They're like in the new golf carts, aren't they?
Well, yeah, we're in year 4 of a 5-year lease, so
Okay.
they're not so new anymore, but
That's true.
they're definitely a
it
lot
already
better
been that
than what we
long?
had a couple
Wow.
years ago.
Seems like it's only, I think it was just last year we approved it, so.
Yeah, no, they're still loving them. I don't know what Mr. Fry says, but you know, I mean, I think they like them.
Excellent.
Will there be any interruption when the irrigation pumps go in?
No, because we haven't actually started up the irrigation yet. We have to start it up because we use that to clean off the machines, but we really don't start irrigation until May, so there won't be any. We don't turn the irrigation on during the day to wash off the golfers, so really the irrigation's only on at night. So
Any other questions?
I don't have a question for the golf cart manager. I do have a question related to the golf course though. So, and the RFP about that. So, I just, out of curiosity, maybe this is probably more appropriate for Jared, just where we're at in the process. That's the first question. And then Amy, maybe this is more for you, or Jared or John, or maybe more for you, what the scope of the Parks Board is in relation to the decision, the go forward decision here. So if you can inform us where we're at in the process, and then maybe Amy, you inform us, or John, you inform us of what the scope of the board is related to decision and where that decision is made. I think that could help.
Happy to talk about that. So earlier this year, I drafted the RFP that was posted. So being a comprehensive document that covered all of the scope of the operations and management that we would expect from not only our team, but a third party. So that was released to the community and to the public, and we received interest. Surprisingly, 3 different proposals were received. Those were reviewed, and from them, only one seemed appropriate. So there has been ongoing conversations and negotiations with that group moving forward. So to speak to the Park Board's authority in this matter, it is a little muddy. So the golf course, when purchased by the town, saved by the town, I think is a better way to say it.
Yeah.
It was indeed deeded to the town. So the Park Board and department has served as essentially the management of that course, but ultimately the asset and the land is owned by the town. So ultimately that authority for how those operations would go into the future would be under the administration of the mayor's office. Fortunately, we have a very collaborative mayor, and we definitely have one hand on the steering wheel as well. So again, guiding through that RFP process and making sure it'll be something that benefits not only our course, but the community as well.
Great. Thank you.
So we were to manage it, maintain it, and then we stayed within the parks and we're able to utilize the funds we gained from that. And I think the goal is, with this process, will be the same. We can still be able to fund our, be able to be more funding of our programming and not have any costs.
And any existing funds from the golf course would remain in Fund 680, which is the golf course, and that would be stewarded by the Park Board.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? All right, Amy, Parks Board Attorney.
The items I've been working on are all in the new business section, so I don't have anything other than those.
Very good. So we'll move on to new business. First up is Maple on Farmstead update.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Garvey, President of Maple on Farmstead. I've been here a couple times, and just recently, I'm going to hand out a couple things real quick. The purpose of why I'm coming today is really just to say thank you and make you aware that it was 20 years ago this year where this Parks Board approved a plan to save Maple on Farmstead. And personally, for me, it blows my mind that it's been 20 years. But we wanted to appreciate the Parks Board take the opportunity this year in 2024 to actually make people aware that the Parks Board in town took a chance to really save the historic farmstead today. The origin of the idea surfaced right after the town purchased what remained of the Bradley Farm, the 40 acres or so site where Mulberry Fields is today. And the Zionsville Historical Society got active, involved, and formed a committee, had interest that stemmed to a great dialogue with the Parks Board at the time, and we ended up agreeing with the plan. The plan was primarily around, the structures, the scenery, the spirit, if you will, the programming, and really sustainability. And we're excited to talk about that this year. We want to use that as an excuse to raise money to actually get ready for the next 20 to 30 years. We have a 50-year lease, so we've got 30 years left. And surprisingly to us, an anonymous donor approached us at the end of the last year because they heard us talking about potentially 2024 as a year to celebrate. And they offered a $20,000 magic grant for us. And so we started to talk about that with a close-knit community, the Maple Lawn folks, and we just publicized that in the newsletter that I just gave out to you. And we're already raised $7,000, and we're excited that we should easily hit that between now and the end of June is our deadline to hit the Grand Challenge. May is typically USA National Preservation Month, and what we like to do is actually celebrate and ask today that you have a save the date, if you will, and what we're doing is trying to invite the community to have a low-key ice cream social on May 19th to talk about preservation, what the town did to preserve the farmstead, and to really, get excited about it. So. Again, here, just what I have in the packet here is just a couple pictures of before and after. It was pretty well run down. It was an eyesore, if you will. Growth was all over the property, and it was more or less, not operated very well since the owner passed away in the year 2000. So we've invested probably over $300,000 worth of capital investments, maintenance, paint, and other sweat equity to get it to where it is today. And really just wanted to again come here and say thank you for the support of the Parks Board here and certainly the community. We couldn't do it without the great support of a lot of service organizations in the community here. We've had high school sports teams out there, wrestling team, swim team, baseball team, the Key Club, and then Kiwanis Club, Optimist Club, and then when the National FFA has their convention here, we bring busloads of kids out from downtown Indianapolis. They get to know Zionsville from students from all over and then we get a little bit of work out of them as well too. So again, thank you, and we'll come back a little bit later in the year to talk about our planning the program after the event. But I just want to make sure that one, you were aware, and two is if there's an opportunity to come out in May to celebrate with us, that'd be great.
You said ice cream was involved?
Ice cream, yes. Yes, that's right.
We appreciate very well, and your passion for this preservation is second to none, and that you should be applauded, your team, for everything you've done and turn that, like you said, that eyesore into a treasure. So thank you.
Well, yeah, my pleasure. And again, it's all volunteer board with tremendous energy and effort that goes all the way back to the Zionsville Historical Society. But every other community groups, like I said, and also Indiana Landmarks was very important in the beginning to get an early grant to get us going and to get us on the path for the historic register as well, too. So thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, Mulberry Field Sports Field Use Agreement.
Similar to last month with our local sports organizations, there is the Skyhawks group, which has operated out of Indianapolis for the past 2 years. Partnering with us last year, they were able to provide a couple of camps out at Mulberry Fields during the daytime for our youngsters. We appreciate working with Skyhawks. They expand recreational opportunities in our community, but they also collaborate both with what we're offering as well as the school's Eagle Rec program. So trying to not have too much overlap, but still provide if there's a need in the community. So this is their second season with us, and they are once again requesting to utilize portions of Mulberry Fields for baseball, flag football, soccer, pickleball, and beginner golf camps throughout, beginning April 9th through the 1st of August. So with Skyhawks, we have a 70-30% revenue split, and those funds go directly into our Fund 211 for future programming in our community. So not only expanding that offering to the community for residents that wish to participate in their exceptional camp programming, but also it helps fund our programming throughout the year as well. So with your consideration, and to enter into an agreement for sport field use out at Mulberry Fields, utilizing the pickleball courts for 1 week, as well as a auxiliary field out in the open space. Happy to answer any questions related to this.
As far as pickleball, they're only using a few courts. I remember from like last year, right?
Yeah, and I think it's just for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
So
And it's usually a downtime.
during the heat of the day, yeah.
So.
Yep. We and with any reservations at our pickleball courts, we provide advance notice so players that have made this a part of their daily routines can know which hours to avoid. And
Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Do we have a motion to accept, was it Sky?
Quick question, John.
Oh, yes.
You said it's an Indianapolis entity?
not originally. They have a regional satellite operations in Indianapolis. Last year was their first year. They partnered with Fishers, Noblesville, and I believe Indianapolis Parks, but I'd have to confirm that one.
This doesn't bump any Zionsville taxpayer, correct?
Correct. Well, it'd be a reserved space, but we offer that to anybody.
They don't have to be a resident.
Yeah, correct. Their registration would be open to both residents and non-residents as well, similar to ours.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
Do acclamation vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, keeping with Mulberry, temporary storage special permit.
Thank you, John. The rugby club was one of our first teams to welcome back when we began with that initiative to welcome back local organized sports to Mulberry Fields after a hiatus of a couple of years. They have been with us since 2021 and are asking this year to have a temporary storage unit placed at Mulberry Fields during their season, which would wrap up in May. So that unit would be a shipping container, 20 feet by 8 by 8.5. They would work closely with me for coordinating where that location would be. And I believe the best place would be within one of our parking bays towards the back, out of sight mostly. And we would cone that off and make sure that it's secured when not in use. But to date, dedicated fathers and coaches have lugged back and forth the rugby goalposts from their garages. So this would just provide a little relief for a couple of months out of the year for them. So seemed reasonable to me. And then working with Amy, we utilized the special use permit to ensure we captured the parameters we were hoping for. So we would not be liable for any damages or any loss on their behalf. And the shipping container would need to leave for the Eclipse event, and then would also need to leave within 10 days at the end of their season, which was captured in the agreement for field usage last meeting.
Questions on this item?
This is tagged with graffiti. Who's responsible for it?
It would be on them. It's their rental, and yeah.
You got something planned?
No, I listened to like a graffiti report every month, and I'm trying to think of if there's any resources we're gonna, if there's any unintended consequences from this.
Yeah.
It's, I get the practicality of it. It's a bit of an eyesore.
Yeah, so tucking it away for sure.
And we're just losing 2 parking spaces, correct?
I'm thinking it'll be 3,
Okay.
long ways, and we'll cone it off so no one's going to accidentally scrape into it.
Where on the park is it going to be?
I'm thinking the second bay all the way to the back. If you're standing at shelter A and the sports fields are behind you, it'll be to that left bay towards the back.
Okay. Do we have any questions or concerns? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Acclamation vote, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Mulberry Fields, modification request. Rugby people are busy.
Yeah. So again, partnering with our rugby club, there was another request. This one has a little bit more permanence for our park system, so definitely something to consider. So actually, let me pull up that small presentation that was in the packet. Understanding that our partnership with the rugby club has gone on for many years, both before the revitalization of Mulberry Fields and at its original conception, they've certainly been a stakeholder and partner for the park and our parks department for many years. So speaking with them, they do have a lot of talents and skills amongst their group as far as their professions and their ability to fundraise for this. So as I mentioned earlier, they lug around temporary rugby poles that are just placed in the grass with their framing, and then they tear them down each season or each game and then put them into storage, which historically has been people's garages. So their proposal would be to actually install permanent footers into the fields of Mulberry Fields underneath the earth, to which they could uncover each season and have those goalposts placed amongst fields 1 and 2, which are what they regularly reserve anyways for their season. Working with them, I made several parameters. They had to find the industry standard for installing these types of things and having a vetted engineered spec to go with it. I was most concerned about fall protection and protecting youth. And then when the goalposts are not in use, what is going to happen with the footer and how is that going to impact any other operations? So this is kind of the display of while the goalposts would be up with a diagram of what that foundation would be. Looking at the sectional view on the right, it's important to note that ground level is above the sleeve and the footer. So the purpose and the goal of that would be that after the season, we would actually compact dirt on top and place a piece of sod over it, so that it would be completely buried under it and no tripping hazards, no astroturf or other obstruction that would be bound to have trouble. So there would be 3 inches of earth above it. Oops, sorry about that. And then again, that concrete foundation and post sleeve, which they would tap into during the season. And then at the start of their season, they have a robot that paints the lines, and they would just undig these and begin anew. There's kind of a diagram of the flange and, hinge and what the goalpost footer looks like. And then again, at the end of the season, capping it and backfilling the hole and placing sod over top.
Who is responsible for that work at the end of the season, the capping and the sod? Is that the rugby team or is that?
Absolutely the rugby team. So with granting this entire project would be on autopilot as to not impact any of our operations or capacities.
Will the goalposts be up continually, or they take them down and put up and store them during the season? Are they going to stay up, or are they going to take them down daily, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Yeah. So I think that mainly would depend on if there was another reservation in those fields, which there's not this season. But if there was any conflict at all, I'd want them removed. But we could also just ask them to remove them after each game if that's a parameter you'd like to place. It's a lot of
work, yeah.
As someone who's done that before with football goalposts,
Well,
it takes
I
a
think
minute.
then if you remove them each game, then you have to come up with an interim condition to make that surface safe. So.
Might be more of a headache.
Yeah, no, I was just curious on what their plan was, and I was thinking, again, you mentioned something about vandalism, so hopefully we are held not liable for any damage to any of their items.
Absolutely.
And this is being introduced to you all just conceptually at this meeting. And if it's something that you want to move forward with, we would draft an agreement and get that in place for
Okay, so this is just to see if we...
Yes.
Do we need a motion to draft that agreement?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to draft that agreement for review and approval at the next meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Look forward to seeing that.
Can I ask one question? Is there any possibility that we could set up those fields so that they're permanently adaptable to various sports needs?
Yes and no. The challenge is that a rugby pitch is different than a football pitch, is different than a Little League infield. So I think the versatility, as long as we retain the versatility, we put that burden onto those teams to make it work for them.
Okay.
But I think it was built as a blank slate enough to accommodate all of that. So
Okay, the building
generally-
of that predates me.
Yeah.
I was just trying to, like, if we're gonna,
I think
if anyone's gonna put infrastructure in, if it can be as adaptable as possible.
Youth football doesn't use the goalposts. They don't kick field goals.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anyone else who would be using.
Okay,
Well, and because
Australian football.
their solution, when they remove it, puts the actual footer area back into a safe field of play, it's still a flexible.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
what's their season?
it'll ramp up in May, mid-May.
Oh, okay, so
So-
it's a spring sport.
Yeah, so they started February, they're out there.
Okay.
And they ramp up just in time for flag football to start coming out. So we've got a good progression of continuous use that we really need to start upping our field maintenance game.
I think I had kind of similar thoughts as you. We want to maintain the openness to everything, right? With the storage container coming in, the footers coming in, it almost feels like it's trending more towards a rugby field area there. So the more we can do to have that versatility, I think the better.
I would say if we can request within the agreement that the sod they use is an RTF sod,
Okay.
that way we can ensure it quickly roots into
Yeah.
and it's self-repairing, that'll be easier maintenance long-term.
That's for sure.
I mean, it's readily available, so it shouldn't be a big deal.
All right, we'll be back next month with that agreement.
Awesome. All right. Now, Park and Play Homeowner Association Agreement.
All right, and for this, I will defer to our Director of Recreation Services, Mindy Murdoch.
Okay, so some of you may remember, but for those that don't, so Park and Play is kind of our outreach program we have with the Creek Stomper. And so her season is going to be kicking off here right at the end of March. We're going to be pulling her out of storage, getting her ready for the season, and doing our first Park and Play right before the start of spring break, pretty much. Last year, we actually reached out to a few Zionsville HOAs to offer park and plays in their common areas. With the park board approval, we put together an MOU with those HOAs requesting that they also do a certificate of insurance, holding us not liable while we are on their premise. We did the same because of our vehicle would be in their common area. We did 2 HOAs last year. They did very well. Both of those HOAs want to return this year, but we wanted to also expand that one. So with your approval, I do have the MOUs from those various HOAs ready for John to sign, and we can get those rolling and get those dates on the schedule.
Yeah, it's very well received. And
It was very well received, yes. So we can definitely fit in. We've got 5 HOAs, and we do have a 6th that we're going to attempt to see. We might not be able to get them all 3 dates, but we're going to do our best to try to get them in at least once this summer. So.
you have like a minimum number you need, right, to get in order to make the reservation?
We told, so the HOAs to participate, they needed to be able to do 1 program a month, so June, July, and August are the 3 months. And they needed to have a common area, relatively flat, where the Creek Stomper could pull in easily and drop off that playing material. So that kind of limits on some, because some HOAs don't have those big common areas, but we've got quite an eclectic mix around the community, and we even have a few that are inviting neighboring HOAs to come play. So,
Excellent. Yeah, any other questions? Do we have a motion? Oh,
If
Yes.
you would want to, you could vote to approve the signature of these 3 agreements that Mindy has in place with these HOAs, and then any additional ones that Mindy might deem appropriate or recommend to John, just so she doesn't have to keep coming
Yep.
back.
Yeah, especially if we're getting into the season, I don't want to delay a month
Yeah.
just to get an approval.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So do we have a motion as stated?
So move.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion unanimous.
All right.
All right.
I'll get those to you to sign right at the end.
All right, thank you. All right, Heritage Trail Park and Overly Warman Playground mulch purchase.
Thank you. So one upkeep item of any playground is your surfacing, whether that's poured in play or the engineered mulch. So this mulch is not just the mulch you would pick up at Lowe's. It's a special engineered fiber to promote accessibility, or at least that's the design, that it can be graded to that stake. So mulch decomposes, gets smaller, so therefore we have to replenish this. So each season we do anticipate that expense. This year we budgeted $28,000, but I'm happy to say that our quote for the work of what we need is much smaller, fortunately, because our depths didn't decrease quite as much as they could have. So for blown-in engineered mulch in both Heritage Trail Park and Overly Warman Parks playgrounds, the total will be $6,518.75. And appreciate your consideration on that quote, and if approved, we would get that scheduled just as quickly as we could.
So we're very low your budget there, so I think it's fantastic. I know the blown is is the way to go. It makes it so much easier for everyone. So
I don't have any questions about the quote. I do have a question about the surface, and you probably know more. You both know more about this than I do. But at neighboring communities, the surface at their parks feels a little bit more premium. It's not mulch. I don't even know what I'm describing. It just feels like
You're describing a
surface.
poured in place.
Yeah.
It's called a poured in place surface, which is the rubber granules that are bound by an adhesive that are typically over a foam subbase or a compacted rubber subbase.
It's the cost difference ballpark.
5 or 6 times the cost. So I mean, it's the most accessible surface. It has the same performance rating for impact attenuation as an engineered wood fiber mulch designed for playgrounds, but it has a higher accessibility, right? So it's much easier to maneuver over. But they're just very expensive systems, and they're not without maintenance either. They're something that you regularly have to maintain and patch and repair throughout the year.
And we actually have 2 in our park system, one at the Lions Park that was just donated to the Lions Park, and the other is at Elm Street Green, that tot lot towards the back. So I'm actually a huge advocate for accessibility, and not only the bare minimum, but also going above and beyond with universal design. So I agree that eventually we will move away from mulch and move towards those better transition surfacing. But I just personally also have a concern about the fact that it's rubber being utilized. So there's some emerging products that are actually cork, which is a sustainable replacement, and has this sustainable and allows for better water infiltration and percolation, and it's not made of a petroleum product. So before we get completely into the port and play, I just want to explore all of our options. And Carpenter Nature Preserve might be the first site that we have that cork port and play, but I need to learn where it's successful in the Midwest because it's a newer product. So there are some park systems up in Wisconsin, I guess.
What we've seen a lot, especially with clients outside of Indiana, is a move away from, for premium surface, move away from PIP because of the ongoing maintenance. And it's pretty difficult. Like once you patch it, it's easy to patch, but once you patch it, you can see where it's patched, because the rubber UV fades. Is a switch to a synthetic turf over a foam system, which is pretty easy to rip open and patch if you need to. And to your point, they for playgrounds have gone away from a rubber infill in that turf like you would with a sports like a sports turf, and they use a cork or a corn or a coconut husk or something like that infill. So we've heard great things about that. So it may be something worth considering long-term. It's sort of on par cost-wise, but has been reported to be easier to maintain long-term.
Very enlightening. Thank you.
Any other questions? Not, do we have a motion to, for $6,018.75
$518.75
for mulch for Heritage Park and Overly Warming?
So move.
We have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right. Monitoring report services change order, Starkey Park.
Yes, so back in 2018, we completed a layer project at Starkey Park, which helped us maintain our creek bank from eroding away. And as a part of that floodplain permit, there was 3 years of monitoring. So 2023 was actually the last year of monitoring for that project, but we did not maintain a 70% canopy replanting within that zone. So as you'll recall last year, perhaps, that we did have a change order for the replanting of that site with Stantec. So because we did not reach that 70% threshold, we'll need 1 more year of monitoring at least. So working with Stantec, they were able to provide the best price for that monitoring again. So they will go out to the reforestation site within the Starkey Eagle Creek Trail 1, take an inventory of the species there, write up a report, and send that off to DNR for us before the end of the year. So for those services, it'll be $3,100, and that will come out of contractual services.
Have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
So if you can close that out this year, that'd be good, right?
Fingers
Yes.
crossed, yep.
Procedural question. Amy, maybe this is more for you. If your limit's 5,000, how come a 3,100? Is it because it's a change order that it comes here? Or why would that not just be within the threshold?
It's a good question. I guess I could have just passed that along, but it's
Okay.
before you all.
All right.
As a courtesy. For an official vote.
All right, Carpenter, oh, I'm sorry, Memorial Bench donation request. No, I'm sorry, I had it right, sorry. Carpenter Nature Preserve Design Service Change Order.
Yes, as I mentioned during my report, we are quite busy out at Carpenter Nature Preserve. And once we got into the field, it was identified that we're going to need additional topographic surveying. So this just requires additional services from a surveying company out beyond the scope of what was planned in the original contract agreement with REA. So this will not only provide additional topography and surveying for areas where amenities are actually going to be placed, because between the master plan and phase 1, there's been a little bit of rearranging, not too much, but it just makes for a better layout and a more user-friendly experience. So with that additional surveying, as well as the creation of land descriptions and exhibits for not only our Next Level Conservation Trust grant that we were awarded, but also the Land Water Conservation Fund grant that we were awarded for this project, the total for those services would be $20,880. And also they will be placing permanent boundary corners on the property. So a superintendent 100 years from now will have a much easier fight if there's any encroachment or something like that.
What fund does this come from again, and how do you stand in that fund?
Yes, so this will come from the Carpenter Nature Preserve bond. We were able to, we budgeted for $450,000. They would be the remainder of the bond for design services. So with the original contract of $390 plus this $20, we're still below that.
Okay.
Any questions about this?
No, I would say as a park designer, good topo is so crucial up front to not just having a good design, but avoiding maintenance stuff long-term too. So I think if they're requesting it now, it's reasonable and should get it approved. So I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
So, second.
Do a roll call vote. Ryan Cambridge,
Aye.
Chris Barksdale,
Aye.
Kimberly Lane,
Aye.
Chad Dilly,
Aye.
and I say aye as well too. Motion carries. All right, now we got the memorial bench donation request.
That's right. So a little background on our Memorial Bench program. It's been in place since 2021, and it allows the community to have a memorial to a loved one or to honor someone in their family or friends. And it also provides additional amenities in our park system for people to rest and relax. So it's a great win-win partnership for both us and the community. And it's been very popular ever since its inception. This year we have 2 sites before you this evening. One would be at the rail trail at Starkey Bridge. So this would join that pad on the historic trail depot. That depot is planned to have 2 benches there. So this would be the second. Last fall, you approved the first one of those 2. And the second would be at Elm Street Green. A lovely couple that just got married there wanted to give back to the park, and we found a great vista from the upper parking lot to look down onto the prairie plantings. So with your approval, and the reason these are before the park board is because we do commit to a 5-year replacement of any of those amenities should they be damaged, but ultimately we will take care of them well beyond that.
Any questions? No. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
And to piggyback on the Memorial Bench donation request is also a quote that was provided at the last minute here for replacement of our benches within Mulberry Field shelters. So
Benches or picnic tables?
picnic tables, thank you. Yes. So one of the things we hear most often is that we just need more amenities. You know, we have 715 acres of parkland now with Carpenter, but we could sure use a couple more benches throughout it. So our goal with this, we are purchasing recycled lumber picnic tables to go under each shelter. They'll be uniform. One solution there, or one problem they're going to solve is that 25% of these new benches will be ADA accessible. Currently, we don't have those within the shelter. So we will repurpose those wooden picnic tables out into our natural parks in areas that wouldn't be accessible anyways.
Don't really want them.
So, and ultimately our goal would be to also get a grant to subsidize a portion of this and have those funds just remain. So we're looking at a community grant for $10,000 for utilizing recycled materials. So for your consideration would be to accept a proposal from Mid-State Recreation for $19,908. And this year within our operating fund, we did budget $30,000 for park amenities.
Is this what those funds were earmarked for?
Yes.
This expense? Okay.
Yep. So should we get that grant, I mean, regardless, we'll still have around $10,000 that we can have trash cans and other things to go elsewhere.
And are these part of any of the purchasing programs? Like, do we know that these prices are good prices? And they look normal to me, but.
Yeah, Mid-State has been our preferred vendor for several of our bench needs in recent history. But if you want us to get a couple of different price points.
No, not necessarily. I just was curious if they were part of any of the community purchasing programs.
I'm surprised there's not more rigor in the bidding process.
It has to go beyond this dollar amount.
Yeah.
There's thresholds that we have to
Do you know
meet.
what the threshold is for multiple bids?
Well, under 50,000, state law allows you to go by your own purchasing policy.
Okay.
So that's one of the thresholds. Anything above 150, you have to bid it out.
I mean, I would say I'm familiar with Thomas Steel as the manufacturer, and these prices look normal to me for, you know, a recycled plastic bench, or picnic table. I just was curious if they were part of any of those programs. So.
Any other questions, concerns? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do a roll call vote. Brian Cambridge?
Aye.
Chris Parksdale?
Aye.
Kimberly Lane?
Aye.
Chad Dilly?
Aye.
I say aye as well too. Motion carries. All right, good on that one?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Rail trail wayfinding signage purchase.
Yeah, so if you've been in the community for a while, you'll know that a wayfinding study was completed a couple of years ago, and it produced a very, I think, Zionsville product of wayfinding signage that will help direct not only locals but also visitors to our town to the destinations that we want them to go to, our schools, our parks, and our village plazas. So I currently have a RFQ out to, I think, 5 sign manufacturers to receive a quote for what will be including within our wayfinding on the rail trail. But partnering with the Department of Public Works, they already had they were a couple months ahead of us, so they've already received their response to their RFQ. And they were already designing these signs, which I will share with you. So rather than including this in our request for quotes and having that additional art design and fabrication set up, we were able to piggyback with them with this change order. So that's an example of these signs. You might notice similar ones that are directing to the rail trail in the village. So this is kind of that wayfinding aesthetic, which is very nature and leaf focused. So we would be purchasing the 10.3 and 10.4 signs, obviously leading to the rail trail. And we're going to place them at the entrances to the rail trail. So to provide greater wayfinding and navigation to our various community connections. So partnering with the Department of Public Works, we were able to order several signs, and that total would be $11,050, and that would come from the $120,000 we budgeted for wayfinding for this year.
Are the ones that we're looking at purchasing double-sided or single-sided?
Depends on what we're purchasing. Yeah. So our purchase will be a little bit different because they'll be on the trail, whereas these will be on signposts, likely one directional, and that's what.
Okay. So the ones that we would put on a trail would be bi-directional?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
You have more signs to purchase, or are you coming in 100,000 below budget?
No, I've got more. Don't worry.
All
Yeah. Along with more places to rest, one of the other things we hear most often is we need more signage. So we are happy to get that rolling out.
So does this say there's 13 signs?
Those quantities have changed from the change order. So I believe it would be 16. I believe we're getting 5 of the 10.3 and 3 of the 10.4s.
And the unit price stayed the same?
Yes, yep. Didn't have any cost savings either, but again, by not having this in our quote, we were able to reduce the duplicate art design as well as the fabrication setup.
And the materiality, they're aluminum panels?
Aluminum panels, yep, non-reflective. And then we will affix them ourselves, so installation will be by our crews.
So the quote is just for the graphic panel, not the post itself?
Correct.
And they're coming in at like $700 a panel?
Yes, which is pretty on brand for what our estimate was with the project.
Man, I'm in the wrong business. I need to make signs.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Definitely pays better than libraries.
I mean, it's without question to me that, signage is super, super important. I echo Jared in that it's often something we hear as a barrier, the lack of signage, or people not knowing how to move around or access things. Seems really high to me for a unit price, but I guess I default to your judgment on that. You said you put out an RFQ as well?
Yes, ours will close, I believe, let me look at the 2 Fridays from now, the 29th. So we'll receive questions on the 15th.
That's for the two-sided ones.
That'll be for the parks.
Bi-directional, yeah.
Yep.
Is there any consequence to waiting to see what those bids come in at? I mean, is there from an installation standpoint or from a departmental capacity standpoint? I mean, I know sooner is always better, but.
Well, no, let's be diligent. So this type of signage wasn't included in my RFQ, just because it was attached to the Department of Public Works who's purchasing those.
I see.
Why wasn't it included? I mean, because you already had this other option to, but
Yes.
you still had this in the scope of what you thought was going to be the signage and wayfinding.
Right,
the
so
year.
the entire wayfinding package is big numbers. So we're piecing it apart, and this year we were willing to, or, able to allocate 120,000 towards this initiative, and that hopefully should get us the entire rail trail signage. And then this was just something that complements the rail trail, and I think would be a nice first step for letting people know how to get to the rail trail. But based on the cost estimates from the wayfinding study, which is now 2 years old, we were able to select signs to be to be under that 105,000.
It's just sticker shock when you've never bought a sign before.
Right. And how many you said we're getting? Again?
16.
Let me pull up that quote.
I have the wrong quote for some reason. Is there a newer one?
He said it increased,
The corner.
but the unit price is the same.
One moment, let me pull that up.
No worries. Well, I guess you could do the math, right? We told us 11,050.
Yeah, I thought I had the unit price even on there.
Yeah, I didn't have that email open.
Apologize for the pause.
Oh, good. We just need that elevator music.
No.
Jared, did you say we have budgeted for wayfinding in this year's budget? Wayfinding.
Yes, within park improvements, which is our $314,000. The major thing I wanted us to tackle was wayfinding.
Okay. And that line item for that is how much in the budget? 100.
$314,000 for the entire improvements line. When I parsed that out in my budgets, it was $120K towards wayfinding, $30,000 towards the amenities, and then it goes down from there.
So it's a small portion of that amount.
Right. So we just might have to potentially scale back should our quotes come in high for the entire package along the rail trail, or parse it out.
That would be my question: is what's your confidence level that within the 120 that you can fulfill everything you set out to do?
Knowing that we weren't ever going to get the entire package done, I think it's scalable. So 120 worth of wayfinding signage is what I anticipated to accomplish, and it appeared that that would be the rail trail in its entirety, but that remains to be seen what the market's done.
And does that include like trail regulatory signage, or is it just sort of directional wayfinding?
Well, allow me.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Now I have the paperwork, so I can kind of show you. Yep. So these are some examples of what the wayfinding package shown, and these were some of the construction documents from that. I apologize, this is not what I wanted to pull up, but this is a good example. This would not necessarily be what would be on a trail, but this is a bi-directional sign. So each direction would have signage on those posts. And these are posts to look like old rail ties. So again, another specialized piece.
Yeah, I feel like when I look at a sign like that, which isn't a monument sign, but it's also not a basic regulatory sign, I think that those, I would expect those to be very expensive, but printed aluminum panel, $700 seems really high to me.
Really high,
As somebody that regularly kind of works with that stuff. That still seems a little high. And I suspect it may be because of the shape It's going to require cutting.
Fabricated, yeah.
But, you know, it just strikes me as high, that's all. I mean, sign stuff is always way more expensive than people think it is. The designer, the sign works, are they the manufacturer of the signs also?
Yes, yep.
And that's what DPW is going with? Is sign, that's who they selected?
Yes,
To go
yep.
with
They
that,
actually
yeah.
only received one quote back from
Oh.
the solicitation.
Have you gotten any quotes back?
They have till the 29th.
Okay. Have you gotten any quotes back?
No.
Okay.
How was that quote advertised? Was it sent to?
Invitation, so under the 150,000 requesting quotes by invitation. All right, I have found it.
Why does it have to be that shape, if that's what it is?
I don't know that that's the primary contributor necessarily. That is something that would increase the price of the sign over it, because you can buy pre-stamped blanks.
Yeah, you
but,
can buy blanks.
But Signworks is, I mean, they plug that, you know, not just them, any manufacturer is going to plug that into a laser cutter and stamp it out. You know, it's not complicated for those people.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more expensive. I would expect it to be a little bit more expensive, not $700 for a single panel without the post or the footer. I mean, I would expect maybe the whole sign
To be that much. That's what I'm
to be
thinking. And we're doing
$600
the
installed
labor.
cost is what I would guess. So,
I apologize, it's much less than that. That was the total amount for both DPW and ours. So,
That makes it a whole lot more
That's a
palatable.
horse of a different color.
at least validates my concern. I was like, man, prices have gone up. Was this a test?
See if
Because
we're
we normally just
fiscally
approve stuff
responsible.
pretty well.
oh, man.
So yeah, so what's our part?
Yep.
$17.
Well, here, I'll give you a 20.
You get a sign. You get a sign.
We had 200 signs for that matter, right? At this point. But no, but
I mean, surely DPW is ordering a ton of them.
Well, why does it say that then?
yeah, I noticed the schools have theirs up, and it's very.
Yeah.
You know, well, we know where we're going, but it's
It's
it's got to
useful.
be helpful for visiting.
Yeah.
No, it's huge. I mean, wayfinding is super, super important, especially along a trail system that, you know, you think about the village, right? And there is no trail that takes you to Main Street.
Yeah.
You get really close, but you still have to figure out how to get there. And when you leave Main Street, how do you get to the trail?
I apologize, Park Board. Outlook is not allowing me to find what I need. In a case of time and transparency, perhaps we should move to a not to exceed number.
Ooh, how do we determine what that is?
I think 5,000 would be enough if the total quote for the original 13 signs was 11,000, and our ask is 5. Let's do some math here.
That doesn't make sense though either.
5,000 is within your, was it 4,999? Is within your scope.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know that we need to approve it if it's less than that.
Right.
Yep. Let's just continue this, and I'll provide an update at the next meeting.
All right.
I apologize, Park Board.
No,
No, you're
You're fine.
I think
Things happen.
you just have a couple things going on.
Just a couple things.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Tabling that one, right?
Yep.
Yep, all right. All right, old business, public art policy.
So this policy was introduced at the last meeting. as we continue to have more and more requests for public art, I do agree it's a great idea to have some framework in place for how those items will be accepted. So within this policy, we've drafted some mechanisms for how that process will go forward. So when a art proposal is presented to myself, we will first do some initial vetting, and then we will form an oversight committee comprised of members of the cultural district, our park board, as well as local artists to further vet that proposal. And then ultimately, upon their recommendation, it would be before the park board for consideration and approval. So that is the meat and potatoes of the receiving of proposals kind of passively. But should we proactively ever look for art to fill our park system, there is also a selection committee within this document for a framework for what to look for and how to find those and solicit those proposals as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but upon approval, we will begin to implement the maintenance work orders mentioned at the end of the document, as well as some internal procedures for the next opportunity for public art. And this is more for temporary and permanent fixtures. So temporary sidewalk chalk art or our butterfly wing trail, for example, those would still be under the purview of the Parks Department and their staff.
We did make just a couple really small changes to the policy that was in the packet last time, and they were primarily just to capitalize defined terms, so just some minor things.
So,
Now,
yeah.
I'm excited about this. Thank you guys for putting this together, you and Amy. It's time. I'm excited to see some more artwork in
Yeah.
our spaces.
Thank you.
Not on every roundabout, though. Let's not get crazy.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, sometimes these things are, you got to start with something and you learn as you go, and, it may be necessary in the future to amend it based on lessons learned, but this seems like a great place to start to me, and I appreciate you guys pulling it together so quickly.
So do we need motions to get this into?
Yes, we do.
To adopt it.
So-
To
formally.
adopt it.
Yep.
We-
Yeah. So we have a motion to adopt the,
Yes. So this will be resolution 2024-02 of the park system this year.
Did you send that?
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't think it was in the packet.
No,
That's
yes,
why I
okay.
sent that to you, yeah. And so that's resolution 2024-02, a resolution adopting a public art policy.
do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Carries. All right, maintenance fleet lease.
Thank you. Yes, this item was continued from last month as we wanted to have a little additional fact-finding about the parameters of the lease and the pricing. So as you mentioned earlier with some of those programs, this is a Sourcewell tiered pricing, so it's the best pricing you can get in the state for that item. And we do have an existing contract with Enterprise as the town. But as these are parks funds, I wanted to come before the board, obviously, and then the paperwork and all that will go through our Department of Finance and the bodies that control that. So for a new crew cab F-250, it is $56,920, which would be a 60-month, 5-year term at approximately $1,085.25 a month. And that includes a maintenance package, which we utilize on our other enterprise leased vehicles. The largest 4 of those vehicles were from 2019. So this would be a 5th vehicle. Our team's growing, our seasonal employment's growing, so we got to get them around.
Are they mileage limited leases?
No.
What do you have budgeted for, and how does this fit within the budget?
Yep. So we budgeted $35,000 for a new vehicle lease. So this will fall under that.
The quote says it's based on 10,000 miles.
A year. Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. I apologize.
It's okay.
We're pretty well below that just driving between
It's
municipal.
locally, yeah.
Figured as much.
And what's the lifespan on one of our vehicles? Because we own this. Or
We-
this is a
No,
lease,
it's a
so we're
lease.
getting this back.
Yeah, after
in
5 years, it's-
Okay.
Yep. So what's kind of nice is that the enterprise program does watch the depreciation value, and when it's the right time to sell, they make that recommendation. So you're always having a newer vehicle, not having to worry about those longevity issues, as well as getting the best return on your investment.
I don't have concerns, so
No concerns?
if it's Sourcewell pricing, then you're not gonna get a better quote
Yeah.
Exactly.
if it's a published price, so.
And it's 20,000 below budget, right, for the year?
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
So moved.
do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Carries.
Thank you.
Enjoy your new truck.
We're just glad it's gonna be a nice white giant
Crew cab.
park branded fleet vehicle. It'll be
Yes.
nice. Very visible.
All right, any other board items? Anyone else have anything they want to discuss or bring up?
We're gonna get into appropriations or the
Yeah.
claims.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one thing I know that the discussion around the Turkey Foot path, golf cart usage, I'm sure all of our emails have been, Parks emails have been filling up, one way, with yays and nays for it. I don't know, Jared, if you can give us an update on sort of where things might be headed in terms of, next steps with that process. But I would also assume that we'll be asked, regardless of who makes the decision, to provide some sort of feedback. And I think to do that, one thing that I've been thinking about is it would be helpful to get a sense, as we've been looking at all these numbers tonight for things like signage, bench pads and everything else, to get a sense of what we think it would cost above and beyond what we would anticipate for just the pedestrian trail as we have it today, if we were to allow golf carts to use it. So I know that in some discussion last time, there were talks of, signing it in certain ways, denoting who has the right of way in certain instances. There would be the removal and patching of asphalt where existing bollards would be, presumably additional signage located along the route. And then I think it was some discussion in some of the proposals put forth by some folks from Holiday Farms, at least that I received an email about staging areas on either side of the bridge. I think it'd be helpful to know what is the cost to us as a municipality of whatever those improvements are, beyond what we would just do to keep the trail sort of the way it is. Because I think that's part of the question is, if the decision is yes, that we're okay with it from a procedural standpoint as a town, then who foots that bill and who benefits from that investment, I think is something that will come up in discussion. So,
Do you want me to address, or do you want to address the rights or that section?
Yep, I'm happy to speak to it. So there's a lot of complexities to this specific example, and I can't think of another park where there was former right-of-way within it. So we're trying to dig into the archives to understand how the annexation of these properties happened within the town. So this originally was county property as the subdivision was coming to our community, and then that was annexed in because they required sewer and some other services. So just digging into that to see if that spells it out. But additionally, there are deed restrictions over these parcels as well. So there's just several layers to consider, and we didn't want to rush a decision that ultimately might not be the park board's jurisdiction as opposed to town council. So we just wanted to do our full due diligence, especially since we've invited so much public input on each side of the conversation. So the exact timeline of when we'll know, that'll just, we don't have that just yet, but we are actively working on it every single day.
Isn't that section a bird sanctuary technically? Or
Yeah. So across the Turkey Foot Park, there is a deed restriction for it to remain a bird sanctuary. There are parameters about the widths of what trails can be. And there is also the clause of non-motorized vehicles in it. So just understanding that complexity on top of the fact that it was a former right-of-way and what happened to that in the transfers of land and
It's
It just
deeded
gets,
to, and all that, so.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose if those deed restrictions exist, they would be in effect regardless of the property owner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's just that who owns the property is the decision maker associated with policies on it,
exactly.
subject to the deed restrictions that come with that property. Is that
Yep.
right?
It is an abandoned road by the county. 92-ish, I think, is when the bridge, when there was a flood, the bridge went out, and they closed the road for forever. So
And just to dispel any further, misinformation or misunderstanding, that everything north of those bollards that we placed, once you leave that parcel, is owned by the park board, that trail. It was transferred from the county to the park board, I believe in 2022. That trail is 12 feet wide, but within that segment of trail, just about to that historic red bridge, golf cart activity is permitted because that is within the Holiday Farms PUD. So within their borders of property, golf cart activity is permitted on public trails, and that's because the golf course is bisected by that trail. The public is also welcome to utilize that trail as well as the public trails within Holiday Farms. So there is definitely some give and take when that community joins Zionsville. But as far as the reason, so those bollards that are at the end of Turkey Foot, they were placed there after the path was paved because we were seeing golf carts in Turkey Foot, which is not a permitted use. So those bollards were placed pending the decision of what comes. They would either be removed or would stay in place.
So how would you describe the bollards north? Is that technically Holiday Farms in, and the bollards south are technically Turkey Foot?
No, we need to come up as a community with a name for this trail, whether it's Holiday Trail, Turkey Foot Trail. Regardless, Turkey Foot Park, as well as the right-of-way north of those bollards, are owned by the park board.
I think that's where the confusion comes into play, is that many people in the community see that portion from the bollards north as just an extension of Turkey Foot and would call it the Turkey Foot Trail, right? And so when you say you can do that on a certain portion of the Turkey Foot Trail, but not other portions of it, I think that's where a little bit of the confusion. And as you get into the history of it, you can see the complexity start to unravel and why we need to take a little bit more time and be a little bit more thoughtful about it.
Right. Well, and I think another thing to consider too is that, and we see this in Zionsville, and I think most communities have over time, as trail systems sort of evolve, in leaps and bounds, right? As properties become available or new developments come in. And as you said, Jared, there's always a give and take of, well, you want this and we want this, and there's compromises made, and that's pretty normal. But I think that understanding that is how that particular portion of trail has those sort of different set of rules, I think is important. And also that was not a decision that we as a park board got to make. Correct. That was an economic development planning decision.
And the transfer of the right-of-way was after that as well.
Right. So, that's also a complexity is, and maybe part of the reason why that there's this sort of pause in the discussion at the moment as it relates to the park board's discussion of this topic is, one, we may or may not even have the jurisdictional authority over it. And two, we didn't create the policy initially that is allowing carts to use the trails where they're otherwise not typically allowed. So it is a fairly complicated issue.
One other clarifying question. As you look through the approval process, and maybe we need to get into just a little bit more of kind of who owns that decision-making process, but this is not necessarily being contemplated as an all-in, we're going to allow golf carts on every single path throughout Zionsville. This is specifically isolated. The request that came forward is specifically isolated to this small section within Turkey Foot, correct?
That's correct.
We're not contemplating golf carts on every single
it's
trail
just
in Zionsville.
this section of trail.
Okay.
Right. But I do think it is an instance to, I think Pandora's box is a little dramatic, but it sets a precedent that we're willing to entertain that as a use on the trail when we historically have excluded that explicitly as a use. And I think that, you know, my crystal ball is pretty cloudy, but, you know, there's probably a lot of neighborhoods that could say, wow, I mean, wouldn't it be great if we could just put our carts on the trail and go right over here
and there, yes.
So, you know, I think, you know, maybe to Michael's point, who's not here in the discussion last time, I think we need to have, whether it's us making the decision or the town, some pretty defensible criteria around why or why not we would allow that in any particular situation, because I do think it will be an issue that reemerges,
Oh, absolutely.
especially as new developments continue to happen. And, you know, we probably will ask developers to participate in trail development, as we should, and, you know, this could be something that comes back up, so.
More to come. All right. Any other business questions? All right, claims. Everyone get a chance to review claims? Any questions or concerns?
I'm looking at, I've reviewed the claims and I'm looking at the appropriation report. Because I think last month we had asked the question, where we at compared to budget?
Yep.
So in terms of the appropriation report, the line items where we are within the parks, because there's a lot of detail in this full report. Where would you draw our attention to here, Jared?
Yes, so that, and this will be in perpetuity unless we add another fund, which happens when we make bonds or other things like that. So 103 is our general operating fund, which is tax funded through the general fund.
Okay.
176 is ARPA. That's kind of one time. And we have two more purchases that will come out of that per the ARPA agreement. And that'll be 75,000 towards a playground at Carpenter Nature Preserve, as well as 7,100 towards a zero-turn mower, which is yet to be purchased. But we have already purchased our outreach vehicle, and I think there's one or two transactions left, and then we'll be done with that. Making our way. 211 is that non-reverting operating, so that's where the majority of our programming fees and revenues come into, and that's what helps supports our summer camp. We also have dog park fees go into there as well as out for expenses related to the dog park, and our gardening program and just other fee-based programs go into that fund. 217 is donations. Those are kind of one-off things that we've received in the past. Obviously, you can't anticipate donations, but we do allocate based on our availability with that. 403 is our non-reverting capital. So as I've mentioned a couple times in recent meetings, that improvements line within the general fund, that 314,000, any underspend with that goes into 403 for future use. So that's kind of how we create a rainy day and cash reserve for other capital expenditures. I don't want to miss one, sorry. 453 is our park impact fee from 2022. So every new development after September in 2022 pays the 2022 fee. Previously, they had paid the 2012 fee. So there are two funds related to impact fees. The other is 473.
If I'm reading this appropriate, 403, there's more numbers after 403, right? Like 403.
Yeah, so this was a town-wide report.
Yep.
So I just tried to grab the pages that were relevant to us.
So if I'm reading that appropriately, we have almost 82% left of that budget, right?
Let me grab the line here.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at it correctly.
Yes, yep. So
Which
year
is
to
about
date,
what we are through the year, right? We're almost 80 if you're going through February.
this is 81% left.
Right.
Yep.
So we're like right on track.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
But that's tricky because that'll be capital claims related to a project. So it won't be, I wouldn't anticipate us going down to 70 next month necessarily. Moving along, 473 was that 2012 bonds. 471 is our Carpenter Nature Preserve. So that will start going down here in a little bit as we have more and more design claims. 478 was the rail trail bond, but that has depleted, so we shouldn't have any expenditures out of there any further. And then 680 is our golf course fund. And I believe that was in an email that was sent with the appropriation report, just so you don't have to memorize what I verbally just said.
Great.
Question. With HIS has 4 requests on here totaling north of $300,000. I'm curious, look, those all look like they've been in the new year. What does that work entail? And what are we signing off on if we pay those as completed, and or what have we agreed already to as being substantially completed?
Yep. I'd have to dig in my emails to find that most recent punch list. One of the largest holdbacks from those funds were those concrete nodes, which we did approve. So with this payout, there will only be 60,000 left in the project, and primarily for reseeding and regrading in 2 spots.
And which are those 2 spots?
The hillside next to the pond, above the gabion baskets, as well as the rustic trail connecting hole 9 to hole 1 on the disc golf course.
Right. What about the swale that isn't a swale, along the berm supporting the bridge?
Yeah, I know that is still in the punch list. So,
I mean, I've actually never objected to a claim before, but I find that their work has been pretty appalling, to be honest.
absolutely.
And I believe their contract required, or at least stated, that the landscape work would be done by a landscape contractor, and they've self-performed all of the grading work that I've seen done out there. I struggle to believe, the nodes are fine. I think that they replace those. I'm happy with that solution, and I'd be happy to approve any of the funds that are associated specifically with the nodes.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's anything beyond that associated with grading and drainage that they're seeking payment for that we haven't signed off on, I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay.
I mean, they drove the Bobcat up and down the back of that hillside and straightened out a little part of it, but I mean, we're going to inherit that problem. I mean, it's still eroding today. They laid sod over part of the asphalt turf. I mean, they dug a swale that isn't a swale, that doesn't drain or go anywhere. It's creating, to be honest, a slip hazard currently because it freezes and spills over the trail. None of that's to plan, which they contractually agreed to, so I'm not obligated or obliged anyway to approve those payments for any of the grading work. So if we can deduce which ones are associated with the concrete, the flat work, it looks good. I'm happy with that solution.
Mm-hmm.
And would be willing to approve those, but I don't know how to proceed at this
Yeah,
moment.
so I don't know how to withdraw that, right? So,
because there's 4 requests in there, and it's difficult. It does not say, it just says improvements. So there are POs associated with them. So I don't know if you have, it says page 1. It's not accurate.
So
It's actually the very last.
the reason these balances are so high is because it's 10% of $4 million. And we're getting to the point where it's harder to hold on to those within the contract because there has been a certain amount of work completed. But I do know that grading and reseeding are 2 of those items that are not approved on the punch list. So we're retaining $60,000 and not signing off on that until that work is completed successfully.
Right, but I think that I want to be clear, as a park board, there's a distinction between doing work and getting paid and doing the work you agreed to do, which is not what's been happening out there. And I know that this is a battle that you've been valiantly fighting, but I'm trying to help your cause here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
What's the legal, what would be, let's say we deny it today. What would next steps be?
deny the whole thing, or just maybe portion it
just a
out?
portion.
Well, I mean, like I said, if you could
Yeah.
show me as one of these POs which portion was associated with flat work,
Yeah.
then I'm fine approving that, provided it's not ridiculously padded. I mean, there's not $300,000 worth of concrete out there,
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know? So,
And,
I
and
mean,
that,
and here's the risk. Here's why I say that is for a big company, you know, that's wanting to get out of a project, $60,000 is pretty easy write-off of $4 million, and I don't want to run the risk of withholding that and then, you know, having them choose not to finish the project. You know, we're going to lose any leverage we have, and we have quite a bit right now, I think.
Right.
And they are still not performing in good faith. So.
Has Tricia provided documentation supporting this payment of this 300?
Yeah.
Signed off on the work that this payment is to cover?
yeah, she doesn't sign off on it unless it is actual work related. So that 300,000 is the 10% of the 4 million, the majority of that.
So Tricia has physically evaluated the work completed against the specs provided and signed off on it?
On certain items, yeah.
Well, but on these, on
There-
what we're approving here.
Yes, yep. I mean, I can't say that we didn't provide any concession to some of the items, you know, per spec, because we have made those concessions, but we have held the line as long as we could and feel that this retainage related to what they have accomplished out of the site is valid and to authorize.
I mean, for me to make a informed decision, I would have to do what Tricia did,
Yep.
which it's her job to sign off and say that it was done the way it should be done.
Right.
So, I'm willing to approve it based on that, but they have not been a good partner. And there are still quite a few issues out there that are health and safety related that are directly the result of their work.
Yep.
That need to be rectified, and I don't want to inherit those as a park board.
How do we escalate that concern further? And I don't feel like I'm fully up to speed on all that, and that's not a reflection of any of your communication. It's a reflection of me being brand new. How do we, like, what's the level up of escalation to make sure that concern and that voice is heard? That the park board is even.
Well, we met with their attorneys they lawyered up and we met on site because we as a town have I'm trying to say this politically correctly, notified them of our intent to cancel the contract for non-performance.
Correct.
4 times over 2 years. This is a park that's now entering its 4th year of construction, 3rd year.
21 till current.
Yeah, it's a simple park. It's a great park. It's not complicated construction.
The bridge was the only thing that's
They
complicated.
mobilized. Well, that was all they had interest
Yeah,
in
exactly.
initially.
Well, that's what
they're a bridge
HIS
company,
is. So.
And a lot of this we inherited. So as background, because and this predates Jared, the procurement process associated with this park. There are liquidated damages clauses in the contract, so there's no penalty for them to delay, which now that is something, right, that we have addressed. It's what you kind of get when you pick the lowest bid, and that's what we're dealing with now. But even with that, they legally agreed to provide a service and a product paid for with taxpayer money that they are willfully choosing not to do and or are incapable of doing within their operational structure. So I don't know where we go from there with them. I guess the direct answer is we would have to go to court, right? And I think there's a pretty limited appetite on the town side to do that, but I could take you on a walk out there and show you 40 reasons in 10 minutes of why we would have a pretty good position to do that. I'm not saying that's the right answer because that will just perpetuate the problem that we already have and possibly incur additional costs. But if Tricia, if you're confident that Tricia has looked at the work completed and signed off on it, then I'll consent to approving it.
Any other questions or concerns? We have a motion to accept claims as presented.
So moved.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Do a roll call vote. Grant Cambridge,
Aye.
Chris Barksdale,
Aye.
Kimberly Lane,
Aye.
Chad Dilley,
Aye.
and I say aye as well too. Carries. All right. All right, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We will be back here. What day is that? That would be
10th.
the 10th.